Hey guys, Kevin here at etrailer, and today we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Universal Group line of trailer leaf springs. Leaf springs are one of the most essential components of your trailer suspension. It's what your axle is actually going to be attached to, and it's going to help kind of cushion that ride so it doesn't feel like you're hitting every single bump super hard. It's super easy to replace. It's super easy to figure out exactly what you need. A lot of people really like to get hung up on the amount of leaves that are in a leaf spring, but that really doesn't mean anything. You just need to check what the actual weight capacity is on it. And one of the easiest ways to figure out the right one for you is to first know exactly what your axle is rated for. So you're going to want to get down below your trailer, look for that axle tag, and then you can find out exactly what the capacity is, and then go from there to find the correct size. When you look at the item description on the leaf springs, you're going to notice that it shows a little bit higher than what it actually is. So when the leaf springs are written up, it's going to show you the capacity for that axle. So in our case, we have 4,000 pound trailer leaf springs, but that's including both leaf springs. So that's going to be 2,000 per leaf spring, and these are all going to come in a quantity of 1. So you will need to order 2. You definitely don't want to replace only one side because that can kind of throw off your suspension a little bit if you have an old one and a new one on the other side. So if you're ever planning on doing this, make sure that you just replace all of them just to keep everything nice and new. So to find the correct size, you're going to measure from eyelet to eyelet. So on double leaf springs, we'll go from center to center on the eyelets, and then we can take that measurement and we can go back to our fit guide and then find the correct length. Whenever you're replacing your leaf springs, there are a couple other components that you're going to want to check and or replace. Typically, you're going to have to always replace your U-bolts. Anytime that you remove your U-bolts from your axle, they kind of conform to that axle and get kind of bent as you torque them down. So you're going to want to take those off, trash them. Typically, they get real seized up anyway, so you usually have to cut them off just to get them off. Other than that, you're also going to want to take a look at your shackle straps and your wet bolts or standard bolts if you have that. Both on our equalizer side and on our hanger side. Your equalizer is another thing that you can look at. You want to make sure that you're not getting any holes started in the hanger. So if it's sitting there and rubbing, or even on the equalizer itself, it'll kind of wear through it. I've seen plenty of equalizers where they start dropping down because the bolt in it is eating up the equalizer itself. Now ours is dirty today, but it's not bad. It's still in okay condition. Another thing you can check as well with that is if you're going to reuse your hardware, just check your bushings, make sure that all of them are still in good shape, or you can get those swapped out. If you need any help finding the correct U-bolts, shackle straps, bolts, or even just the trailer leaf springs, then please reach out to us via our customer service line or through our Ask the Expert line, and I or one of my other coworkers will help find the correct leaf spring or other suspension items that you need for your trailer. Universal Group's line of trailer leaf springs are all made of a sturdy steel construction. They have a nice powder coat finish on them, so that's going to help resist rust and keep these living a whole lot longer. And on the inside of our eyelets, we also have nylon bushings. Now you can't see it because our bolt's already in place, but those bushings are going to help keep it lubricated and kind of being able to easily move back and forth as you go over road bumps. As far as installation goes, it isn't too hard, especially with smaller trailers like the one that we have today. It is just a lot of prep work, and it's just kind of tedious work once you get under here. As you can see, looking at the floor, it is super dirty depending on the trailer. A lot of rust builds up, a lot of grime from the road, so make sure that you have on clothes you don't care about. Definitely want some gloves, some eye protection, and then you're going to need an assortment of jacks because you need to lift up your trailer and let the axles hang and then slowly support those axles. And I tend to use a bottle jack just to make it easier so I can lift them up and down, because you do have to move the axle up and down quite a bit while you're trying to get those new leaf springs on. So as you can see, it looks like the leaf spring that was on here originally has been welded back together. Looks like it probably snapped right about here, and they just came down the side of it and put a little tab over the top. Extremely unsafe. Don't ever do that. Just go ahead and replace your leaf spring. It's going to be a whole lot cheaper replacing that leaf spring than anything else that could break if the leaf spring broke while you're going down the road with a heavy load on your trailer. Now we've taken a look at that, we'll just kind of break down our suspension here. So we're going to have to remove our bolts that go into our shackles right here and our shoulder bolts on the edge of our axles for each side. We're also going to have to replace our U-bolts. So when you take these off, typically you can't really reuse them. They typically don't want to come off either, so I usually have to cut these off. So we're going to go ahead, we'll cut those off, we'll get some new ones, some new leaf springs. And since our neighbor is not replacing their bolts or their shackles, and they're not in too bad of condition, they're just really dirty, we're going to go ahead and reuse those. So we're going to be careful as we're taking them off that we don't strip the bolts, strip the nuts, or destroy the ends of our bolts hammering them out. If your bolts are as dirty as ours today, go ahead and take some penetrating oil and let that soak on there and really kind of eat up some of that grime. Make it a little bit easier. So on the back side, on our bolt head, I have my breaker bar, and I've got it kind of wedged up against the frame of the trailer so it can't move. We don't want that bolt to sit there and slide because it's got these teeth that bite into the shackle, and we don't want that to sit there and grind that out and then have the shackle be loose, because if the shackle gets loose, it's going to sit there and kind of wobble out and get an oblong hole through it, and then the shackle is going to end up breaking. But we'll go ahead and start breaking these off. Want to make sure that you're loosening the nut and not the bolt. All right, now I'm getting my jack in place. That's going to hold up our axle once I get these leaf springs loose. That way we don't have our axle come crashing down. If we push up a little bit on it, it's going to kind of help release some of that tension that's on that shackle strap too. Pry it off the rest of the way with our screwdriver. And now's a good time to take a look at your shackle strap. Looks like we're pretty good. It's not starting to get oblong in there at all. It's not really chewed up. It does look like it's kind of been rubbing against the frame probably. Right about there. But all in all, pretty good. If you wanted to, this would be the perfect time to go ahead and swap out your bolts, especially if you wanted to upgrade to wet bolts. Make it super easy to lube it. But our neighbor today wants to keep their hardware, so we'll go ahead and just pop it out and save it. Swayed it out a little bit. And we can go ahead and do the same thing over on our other side. Now that I've got my leaf springs separated from my hanger and my equalizer, I've gone ahead and lowered the axle just a little bit so it's a little bit easier to get in here with the grinder. I'm going to go ahead and cut these U-bolts off. Now I'm just raising my axle up out of the way as I try to put the leaf spring in, and we'll lower it back down once we have everything ready to go. It doesn't really matter which side gets the retention clip. I always just try to put it towards the rear of the trailer just to kind of keep everything uniform. But we'll go ahead, we'll grab our hardware. And I'm going to flip this around just on the shoulder bolts to be able to hammer it in. I prefer hammering it from the outside in, just because once you get under there and you start banging, it really vibrates and makes a whole lot of noise under there. Line it up, pop it in place. Now we can go ahead and we're going to hammer in the teeth that are on the bolt. Get you a little bit closer of a look. You can see those teeth right there bite into the hanger and prevent the bolt from moving. So get that back in place. And then we go ahead and stick a nut on it, and then we will start hammering it in. And that nut's just going to kind of help it from popping back off, because a lot of times when you hit it, it'll want to smack back out. And we're nice and flush, so we can go ahead and start tightening up the nut. I'm just going to do it hand tight for now as we get it connected on the other side with our equalizer. So I'm going to grab that shackle strap, and I'm going to get this above our equalizer, possibly. The other leaf spring's fighting us. It's okay though, we can just go ahead and stick it in on the lower side, and we'll flip it over using a pry bar. Go ahead and we'll replace our shackle strap and then our nuts. Yeah, that's about as tight as I can get with my hand. Go ahead and we'll tighten that up just a bit more using our wrench and our breaker bar. As we're tightening these down, we don't want them to go too tight. We just want it tight enough so that there's no play with the shackle strap. But we do need a little bit to where we can still have it loop back and forth. So as the suspension swings, as you're going over bumps in the road, it's not going to get stuck. All right, now we're tight, but we don't have any play in there. But loose enough that we should be able to still have our shackle straps kind of swing back and forth. We'll grab our pry bar and we'll flip this back over. Want that flip back up, that's going to make our spring stack more straight here so that it's easier to put our U-bolt kit on. So I'll go ahead and lower my axle back down a bit. Kind of get it lined up. I need to drop it just a bit more. We're kind of on there. It's just a little bit crooked. It's probably fighting us on the other side. So what we'll do is just, the equalizer on the other side is kind of aiming down, so it's throwing us a little crooked. No problem though. As we start tightening down the U-bolts, it'll kind of pull it back into place. So we'll have our U-bolt plate facing with our edges facing down. We'll get that center and the bolt on our spring stack. We'll place our U-bolt over, slip it into the holes, and then we're going to use our flange nuts. Now these kits aren't going to come with the leaf springs. This is something that you have to buy separately, and it's all based on the axle capacity. So if you need help finding that, you'll want to go to the trailer suspension facet on our website and look up your axle capacity. That'll give you a good idea. You may have to make some measurements just to see, because there are a few oddball axles out there that will be a different diameter. Now we're going to go ahead and tighten these down and torque them down as well. As I do it though, I'm going to go evenly across all four of them. If you start doing one side more than the other, it'll kind of throw it and want to pry the plate a certain way, and then it makes it harder to get it on correctly. So a good way to do it is just kind of look at the amount of thread you got. So go ahead, keep working it down. All right, I've gone ahead and tightened down our hanger as well. On those, we also just want to make sure that it's snug, but not too snug, because this does have to kind of roll back and forth. Now that I've got this side done, I'm going to go over to the other side, and then once we have that all complete, we can go ahead and throw our wheels on, and that'll complete the installation. Well, that about does it for today's look at and installation of the Universal Group's line of trailer leaf springs. My name's Kevin. Thanks for watching.